There's another way to respond besides these two options. Not everything needs to be punished and corrected or fixed and pain-free. Welcome to the Relational Parenting Podcast. I'm Jennifer Hayes, a parent coach and 20-year childcare veteran. Each week, I sit down with my own father, Rick Hayes, and discuss the complicated issues that parents face today, as well as some of the oldest questions in the book. From the latest research and the framework of my relational parenting method, we offer thought-provoking solutions to your deepest parenting struggles. Added bonuses include intergenerational wounding discussions and guest childcare experts. We will also start taking your parenting questions in episode 5, so be sure to comment with your biggest questions or email me directly at jenny@jennyb.co. Let's get started. Welcome back, everybody.
Hey there.
Welcome back to the Relational Parenting Podcast. This is a me and Dad episode, Dad and Me, like a TV show. Dad and Me episode. We had a 3-week run with guests, and we're gonna have another 3-week run with guests. Just shuffling things around and trying to fit everybody in, and it just like we're scheduling out into February and March of next year. But like these people that I'm meeting are so amazing and wanting to get them on the air. And it's hard to not just schedule everyone back to back, but, excuse me.
Maybe we'll have to switch to that sometime.
Yeah. Maybe someday we'll just, I don't know, but I kind of feel like these, with guests, it's a topic that's dependent upon the guest. And with our episodes, I get to teach something that I see, that I currently am seeing in the parenting community that needs to be addressed, or that people don't know about, or I get to fill in the gaps with these episodes. I get to fill in and teach things specifically from the relational parenting method versus a guest who the content is kind of dependent upon their expertise, which is great because we need other people's voices. But I think I've played with the idea of it just being a guest podcast, but I don't want to lose these episodes. I think that they're really beneficial, and I think there's a lot of the intergenerational exchange, I think, really happens in these episodes. It's magnified when it's just you and me. So anyway, logistics, decisions behind the scenes. But this week we are talking about a parenting skill that it's one of the parenting skills that I try to teach new parents or any parents that come to me, because it's such a non-intuitive skill. And a lot of parenting and a lot of people will say, like, you'll just figure it out when you become a parent. And while that's partially true, there are things in life that are non-intuitive or non-automatic, and we're not always like, we are not just another animal. Animals, we have animal instincts, but we also have a prefrontal cortex that creates we have judgment. We can prioritize tasks. We can make choices. Whereas animals, lions and tigers and bears, oh my, everything they do is based on instinct and survival. And for the most part,
our social side is a little more complicated.
So we have, and we've got a part of our brain that animals just literally don't have. And so what sets us apart is having the instinct and then having the ability to look at that instinct and go, is this actually the right choice is in this moment? Or is this just base instinct? Or is this just my past experience telling me that this is the only way to handle this situation? And taking a pause, not just reacting. We say this a million times every episode. We're not just reacting, but we're choosing our response to any given situation. And so I think that our instinct for a lot of people and a lot of parents that I've worked with, a lot of parents that I've worked for, and even in myself, the instinct when a child has an undesirable emotion or behavior or outburst or reaction to their environment is to either punish it and stop it, or to fix it and stop it, to swoop in and rescue. And the instinct to do that comes from a wonderful place, maybe not the punishment one, but the instinct to swoop in and save them from pain comes from a wonderful place of protection and love and empathy. The instinct to punish also actually, I will argue, comes from a good place. It comes from a place of wanting our child to develop into a social being who isn't shunned or made fun of, or any of those negative social reactions we can get if we're not well behaved. There's also a fear.
Hopefully it's a protective thing.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's a protective thing.
It can also come from a place of parents feeling embarrassed if their child doesn't act perfectly in every situation, being judged by other people or other parents, et cetera. And really those things shouldn't matter in your parenting. What other people think, nobody knows what's actually going on with your child except you. And, if your child's having a tantrum in the grocery store, like, it's your job to respond appropriately to that child so that it doesn't cause harm to your relationship with them, and literally ignore everything else. If anyone is looking at you or watching the situation, or you feel judged, even if no one has said anything, or if someone has said something, like, politely tell them to fuck off and give your attention back to your child, because nobody has any business or ignore them, but nobody has any business interfering in that situation or laying their judgment on it, unless they're purely there to offer assistance. Hey, can I help? Can I help in any way?
Can I hold your purse while you clean that up?
Yeah, I don't know that I would trust that either, but there's a lot of other things to offer besides holding someone's purse that can be.
Let me hold your wallet for a second.
Or let me clean that up. You go take care of your child is more like a helpful.
That's a little more altruistic
offer. Yeah. But anyway, so there's two sides to the same coin that I see constantly. Is we're either punishing, shaming, or guilting a child's actions or undesirable actions, or we are swooping in and fixing undesirable feelings. So your child doesn't listen to you. If your child doesn't want to do something that you are trying to get them to do, if your child is, arguing with you, whatever that might be that gets the punishment. That's one side of the coin. And the other side of the coin is usually when something happens to your child or in your child's environment that causes them pain, and they have an emotional reaction to it, and you, the parent, swoop in to fix it, take away the pain, etc. And so those are two sides of the same coin that have the same outcome, which is that your child is never going to learn how to appropriately deal with big emotions. So we'll talk about positive emotions or positive things. And we've talked about praise. We did an episode on praise and, you know, when your child does things that you like or appreciate or want to repeat. But today we're going to talk about when your child does, how do I want to say this? When your child is experiencing pain or upset towards you, what they need is for you to understand and let them feel that way. You don't have to you don't have to make it okay for them to act how they're acting. You don't have to, you know, coddle them or anything, but you do need to sit through the storm with them and say, I see how frustrated you are. I know you wanted another cookie. We're not going to do that right now. I know you're so frustrated. I'm sorry you're feeling that way. That sucks. You know, I see how frustrated you are. Instead of stop crying. You know, you don't get 2 cookies after dinner. You only get 1. If you're going to act like this, then there's going to be no cookies after dinner anymore. Like threatening, like shaming, you know better, punishing, go sit in timeout because you want 2 cookies, stuff like that. And then a child breaks their toy and experiences internal upset because my toy is broken. And parent swoops in and says, it's okay. We'll just order a new one on Amazon. It'll be here in 2 days. It's okay. It's okay. We'll just get a new one. It's fine. Just stop crying. 2 most common outcomes that I see, and the 2 worst things you could possibly do repeatedly to your children to help them with their emotions.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to parents being in a place, keeping themselves in a place where they can like choose an approach. When you see a, you know, the words that are coming into my mind as you're talking are like control. Are you controlling or are you teaching? You know, what do you want to do here? If it's just like, oh, I'm embarrassed because my child is making a noise and somebody's looking at me, you know, that doesn't seem a real healthy way to go at working with the situation. You know, you generally, if it's my child is about to run out in front of a car, well, okay, we just need to get this under control right quick before somebody dies.
Right. We're never talking about that. We're never talking about a child running in front of a car. That's always your example.
I try to cover because that will be the comment. Well,
great. Let them comment and we'll respond to it. Right. We like comments. If you want, if you want to be that extreme of a human being, that's fine.
That's right. But normally, I think what you're doing as a parent is you're wanting to teach. It's everything is a teaching moment. Kids are running around, learning the boundaries, learning where the fences are, learning how to deal with emotions and circumstances and other people their size or bigger, and you know, everything is really a teaching moment. And trying not to make it about yourself. That's sometimes a challenge if you're in a hurry, which parents always are.
Well, and I would disagree with everything as a teaching moment.
Okay.
Because that also creates this parent taking over the situation and telling a child what they need to do. So not everything is a teaching moment. In relational parenting, the primary thing that I teach people is actually every moment is a chance for connection and to deepen your relationship. Okay. In any given moment, you can deepen your bond with your child. You can deepen the trust and the respect between you and your child. But first, you have to let go of the idea that you are going to always be able to control or ever be able to control what your child does.
Mm-hmm.
Once there's connection, once there's a come down, once regulation is restored,
Mm-hmm.
then we can teach. Or better yet, then we can ask our child to participate in the problem solving.
There you go.
Because more often than not, your kid already knows they fucked up. Your kid already knows that they shouldn't have done that. Your kid already feels bad for doing it. And the only thing that us retelling them what they should have done instead is going to do is cause more shame. Instead of bringing the child in and saying, what could we do next time differently? What do you think?
That's what I mean by teaching sometimes. Modeling, offering alternative ways of thinking about things, not necessarily telling them what to feel, but going through that exercise with them, showing them how to deal with these circumstances.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that the word teach then is inappropriate. I think guide would be
okay. Fair enough.
And I'm just
more useful in
saying this because I think
people get a handle on it. Yeah.
That the word teaching is you are speaking the information to someone who doesn't know things, right? Yes, a one way from me to you. And I think that guide, the word guide, every moment is a chance to guide your children. Every moment is a chance to connect with your children, to connect and guide and deepen your relationship. Because that's really truly the definition of what parenting is guiding a being from infancy into adulthood to be the most healthy version of themselves that they can be, to be the most fulfilled, happy, healthy version.
Successful, whatever that means. Yeah.
So that they can then pursue their purpose and life's meaning on earth as well. And if, like, I just get this image of like parents standing over small children and going like this. If this is the image that we have of what parenting is, then that's where we lose the connection and the relationship part. But if we bring our children in
that's a good distinction.
Yeah. If we bring our children in as teammates, and you're the team leader.
Captain of a team. Yeah.
Yeah. You're the team leader. You're the captain, but your children are your teammates and need to be treated as equals and valuable and valued for their gifts and what they bring to the team and their ideas and their opinions and their thought processes and their emotions, because emotions give us information. And you need to meet the needs of your team. You don't punish your team for having needs. You find ways that everyone on the team has their needs met. So when I think we've talked about you and teaching. Like, you loved to teach us things in any given situation. We've taught, and your childhood,
sometimes lecturing.
Yeah. But you did that because in your childhood, you had very little guidance. And so you wanted to, not be like an absentee kind of parent. You wanted to teach your kids things. And
Part of that too was later on, my time with you was limited, and so it didn't happen. A lot of that when you were older didn't happen organically. It happened, like on a Wednesday night. It's like, well, okay, if it's going to happen, then I just got to dump it, and that was a little less than ideal too. But there's a lot of people out there in that situation.
Knowing what you know now, here's the question. What would you do differently when it came to big emotional whatever, when we were little, I'm thinking of like when we were small, or in middle school or in high school, and we had big emotional outbursts or we got angry or whatever. I guess pick an age. How would you approach us differently? Whether we were disagreeing with you, pissed off at you, or we had experienced a painful experience with a friend or a toy being busted or whatever. Pick a scenario and what would you do? What did you do? And then how would you do it differently, knowing what you know now?
Let me think of an instance or two.
Yeah.
The anger and upset, I always kind of enjoyed dealing with that, because I think we are really ourselves when we're angry. That's when the filters, the whole idea of regulation really kicks in when you're upset. And people will say things in anger that they don't mean. And I'm like, no, I think they do mean that. They just let it slip. They didn't mean to say it when they say that. But I think you're being genuine when your lizard brain kind of takes over. So kids, I like to guide them as much as possible through, like I don't know, teaching Sunday school, whether it was you kids or other kids. There were times probably where in terms of what I did do, there were probably times when you guys would fight about something, and you just put an end to it, right? When you're wee little and there's not a lot of arguing, when there's not a lot of angling going on with the little kids, where they're just angry, sometimes you just have to separate them until the hormones or whatever until they calm down, and then you reintroduce them together, when it's not so emotionally charged. But just being emotionally charged is tough to deal with sometimes. And like you were saying before, the people get upset in different circumstances, and the circumstances kind of grow as the kids grow, as the people grow. The kinds of things that high school kids are upset about are generally different than, hopefully, are different than the things that 3-year-olds are getting upset at each other about. So you calm
maybe
down
on the surface, but the emotions are the same. I'm hurt, I'm scared, I'm frustrated.
Yeah. The reasons for the triggering of the emotions is usually more complicated when you're older. Hopefully, by the time you're 17, you've learned to deal with the 3-year-old kind of issues. He took my toy.
Not if you weren't taught how to when you were 3.
That's right. That's probably where a lot of crime comes from.
Separating young children. What did you do? What did you do? When you would separate us? Would you just separate us and make us all go calm down alone? Would you come talk to us? Would you what did you do back then? And what would you do?
Those. Yeah. Both of those. As the situation, parenting is so complicated, the circumstances are always important. Sometimes it make you sit there together just out of arm's reach. Right?
Yeah.
If you weren't in the car traveling and everybody was crunched together, where I'd just tell you to sit on your hands for a while, and it's like, chill out till everybody gets the impulse to mess with everybody else under control. Is it and then tried to talk about it. I tried not to ever let it just go. There had to be some talking about it. So it's like, what happened? And okay, this, we kind of have a plan for it not happening again, for the most part, trying to keep the uproar in the household to a minimum. If you got into it and then we sat down and cooled off, not just a timeout, but sat down and cooled off, and then talk about it at my convenience. If I was working in the, sometimes some of that time I was working in the basement. If you guys were just having trouble getting along for whatever reason out in the basement, there'd be a time of sitting down, and if I got a phone call, I got a phone call. That was kind of the random part of it. Was, well, now you're at the mercy of the courts or some authority. You'd be the authority,
Yeah.
and then you come back out and say, okay, what's going on? What happened? And and then sometimes things would get too complicated. Everybody's skewing the story their direction. I remember how kids get good at describing things as, well, I was throwing a ball and Jenny got in front of it and got hit. It's all very, very,
Yeah.
I didn't do anything, and it just happened,
Yeah.
and then, working through, getting to a point where it's like, yeah, that one's not going to fly. And, and I enjoy that's where nobody's dying. I always just kind of enjoyed watching your minds work and twist and turn, and that's where a lot of our talking came from, was the twisting and coming from the twisting and turning that kids do to figure
Yeah.
out how to deal with situations. And I just go with it and let it run, and let you tie yourself in knots and sit there and think about it, and basically it wasn't over until you could get along. Sometimes it took repetitions of that.
So now from a relational perspective, when siblings fought, or I'm just going to use that because that's kind of the example you were giving, was when we, the three of us, would fight.
Yeah.
From a relational perspective, is there anything you would do differently?
Yeah. There would be the talking. I would probably still interrupt, and there might even be some sitting down. I'm sitting here walking through it. It's like, okay, knock off the commotion. What's going on? But there would probably be more talking about how you felt when you did it. Less. I was probably more focused on the mechanics of who did what. One of my rules was always the first one to lay hands on the other one is wrong. You don't get to lay hands on other people. You got to find another way and suggest other ways. Now it would be trying to make you more aware of what you were thinking and feeling, and how to not just be at the mercy of that. How to it's like, yeah, okay, I get that. And, making sure they feel heard, making sure you feel heard. And I think that, feeling heard, a lot of times with kids, it's just about their feeling unjustly treated. It's the injustice of things that really gets kids going. And so getting you to feel like the injustice has been resolved, and everybody knows why everybody felt unjustly treated. And then I imagine most of the time that would move on. But that's time consuming. There's also times where there isn't time to do that right away.
Well, but it's not any more time consuming than trying to figure out who laid hands first and getting three sides of a story. I like what you said was, instead of trying to get through the mechanics of who did what, who said what, who did this first, who triggered who, blah, 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 you're instead going
pronouncing judgment.
Right. Which is what kids are terrified of, and why we all stop saying I threw the ball at Jenny and say I threw the ball and Jenny stepped in front of it, is because we're trying to hide from the wrath of our parent. Because we felt, for whatever reason, he felt justified throwing a ball at me because of whatever I did to him. And then you just go around in circles. And it's the same in partnerships, in romantic partnerships. The fight is never about the fight. The fight is about someone got hurt and reacted. And that's what sibling relationships are too. So if you spent the time you were already spending on asking the kids to identify their emotions and how they felt, having each kid hear how the other kid felt, instead of you threw this and you did that and throwing accusations. My feelings were really hurt when so-and-so said this. And my feelings were really hurt when, so-and-so did this. Oh, well, and then I thought that they were going to do this, so I threw a ball, and so that they wouldn't, hit me or whatever, because anticipation, even though it didn't happen, the fear of it happening is still very real and very visceral. And so you can get to the bottom of something. I think what you said is perfect. You can get to the bottom of whatever it is so much faster if you focus on what they were feeling, and say, oh yeah, that sounds like it would hurt, or that sounds frustrating, or that sounds painful, and validate that they felt that way. You don't have to validate the actions that they took, but validate that they felt that way. And then in that particular situation, after all of that, okay, I was going to give you the answer, but I'm not going to. After we've had a round table, okay? The three of us were fighting. You walk in, you cut it off, and you're like, whoa, everybody stop. Take a second. Take a deep breath.
I need this to stop,
Hey, like, what's going on? We all jump in and try to tell our side of the story so we don't get in trouble. And you're like, whoa, 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 slow down. Everyone take a deep breath. Maybe you sit down on the floor with us and you're like, hey, are you guys frustrated right now? Or whatever. You start the conversation.
Do a little prompting. Give them some vocabulary.
You start the conversation. You get us all talking about our feelings. And then what? We've all been heard. We've all been heard. We've all expressed our feelings.
Yeah.
What's your next step?
Ooh.
I like this. I like what this has turned into. This is a quiz day. We didn't even know. We didn't even know.
Or Now I wish I had the video camera up in the corner of the basement, where we could go back and say, okay, June 3rd, 1962 or whatever. We could go back and replay this. Right. So if everybody was sitting and taking turns, we'd have to say, okay, now it's Jenny's turn to talk now.
There'd be some refereeing.
Right. You do some refereeing and everybody's talking. And you do some...
What comes after?
You can ask some leading questions and everybody feels heard.
Then what's next?
Then the next step would be, so what are we going to do different going forward? I mean, as a parent, my concern at the moment is I have someplace to be. I have somewhere, I have other things to do. I need to go mow the grass before it gets dark or whatever. Yeah. And so I want to avoid repetition. So the next step for me as a parent is
avoiding repetition.
So how are we going to do it?
Yes, is the short-term goal.
Right.
But the long-term goal is that your children grow up and have connected, healthy relationships with one another, and they help each other out through life. So
and me with
often,
them, and I've shown them how to do this to their kids.
Right. So the short-term goal, which is also extremely valid and is usually what parents are talking about and frustrated about. It's like, I have a million responsibilities that I need to handle. I can't constantly be playing referee. And it's like, yes. And if you want to raise healthy, happy, functional children who like each other and stay in touch and remain family and, play with cousins and all the things, like if that's what you want for your children, then you need to put in this time. And it's going to take the same amount of time to punish them as it is to have an emotionally intelligent conversation and help them work it out. So,
and have some residual benefit for the next time.
Yes, you need to go mow the lawn, and you want to not have to come back inside to us fighting again. But ultimately, long-term vision is that you are raising 3 children who love and respect one another, can lean on each other in hard times, perhaps when you're not around anymore, whatever, parents think, you think of these things. So anyway, so I just wanted to point that out. That's a short-term thought process, and there's also a long-term goal here.
Big picture.
So I'm sorry. So we've had everyone has had their emotions heard and addressed. How I was feeling. I was this. I was feeling that. I was feeling this. Okay. We've all heard each other. What's your next step? You said,
so what are you going to do?
What are we going to do differently?
What are we going to do next? Yeah. What are we going to get? We're all going to get up and go. I got to go mow the grass. What are you going to do different? Because it was always, and I'm sure this is true everywhere. We had 3 kids in the house. Any 2 of them together were generally fine. It was when all 3 of you were in the same room.
Yeah.
Right. There was a sibling. There was something about that. We'll have to study up on that. But that's when it became 3. Then it ended up somehow or another being 2 against 1.
Yep.
And somebody felt abused somehow or another, or actually, in fact, was abused one way or another. And it's like, okay, I'm asking you guys to provide a solution instead of just, I think I did pretty good at saying, at least giving you a chance to do that. And then at some point, if that was not working out and I didn't have time to deal with it, it's like, okay, everybody go sit on your hands. I mean, there was some way of immobilizing or separating, or, there just wasn't the time for some reason to deal with it.
Yes, but my question...
I tried to let you guys propose a solution.
Okay. And my question is specifically, what would you do knowing what you know now? Not what did you do? Because we covered that. What would you do knowing now a more relational, connected approach after having everyone speak about their emotions?
I'm not sure I'd do anything different. Once everybody had explained and understood how everybody felt, right? Okay, do you understand why you shouldn't have done that? Then I think I'm still stuck on putting it on the kids to come up with a plan.
So I think that's good. I don't know that maybe I missed it. I don't.
This?
Yeah, asking the kids to come up with a future plan.
What can you do? How do you deal? How would you? Which ends up being, well, when they have kids, they'll be like, so what would you guys do to avoid this in the future? Which does not take into account the really repetitive ones where someone is really irritated with somebody and they are intentionally instigating these things, in which case, it's not about just feelings. There's somebody's got something that needs a little more study.
Right. So we skipped a step.
But getting the kids to propose a solution and then stick to it would be my next step.
Yes. So those are 2: addressing emotions and coming up with a plan for the future situation are 2 steps in the process. And I'm really excited that you have those. There's a step in the middle that you missed. So we can't just express emotions and then leave them floating around in the air and then try to come up with a solution for a future situation. We still haven't fully addressed the current situation.
Well, so I'm thinking before I get up and leave, the plan they come up with is immediate, is for the next half hour, for implementation right now. We were upset. Are we okay? Are we good now? Right? Are we still upset?
But why would they be good? All we've done is say, this person did something that hurt me. I'm hurt.
Okay.
What makes you feel better when you tell someone who loves you, you've hurt me? Is it, well, I won't hurt you in the future?
Well, you need restitution.
Repair. So we all express our emotions, and then the guidance
not just an apology, but whatever it takes. Yeah.
Well, and forcing children into an apology if they don't feel sorry is also, one of our episodes.
Not productive.
But you being the coach and the guide for, okay, Jenny just had her turn to talk, and what she expressed was that Josh said something that hurt her feelings, and then she threw the ball at Josh to hurt him back. And
Mm-hmm.
so, Josh, Jenny said that you hurt her feelings. What is something that you could do right now that might make her feel better or might
There you
help
go.
you guys
There you go.
reconnect?
Yeah.
And then he could offer an apology, or he could say, I didn't mean it. I was feeling stressed out because whatever, and I took it out on you and I didn't mean to. And then, okay, Jenny, when you threw the ball that hurt Josh, what's something you could do right now? And coaching
Yeah.
each of us then through with helping to repair the
Doing a
emotions that are
repair.
now
Yeah.
floating
Yeah.
around. Because if you don't do repair, and they might not be ready for repair immediately. They might need, I know that I was probably the kid that would have been sitting there seething, pissed, feeling no matter how hurt I was, I probably needed to walk away for an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to
Mm-hmm.
have kids that do that. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
coming down right now. My
Takes
nervous system
longer for
is
the
going to
adrenaline
take,
to dissipate.
yeah.
Yeah.
And my adrenaline takes a while.
Yeah.
And I think Josh would have probably been the A+ student in repairing immediately, and I would have been
Yeah.
the kid that was like, I'm going to go to my room for 4 hours. Don't talk to me.
Yeah.
And
And
then I
that's
would come
okay.
out, with my head hanging low and been like, I'm sorry, Josh. I didn't mean to. Like, I didn't mean to hurt you.
I've had time to, and that's the thing. Your head you get agitated and you're not thinking straight. And it's so, yeah, whatever it takes to get so you can think straight. And sometimes it doesn't happen in 5 minutes. Yeah. Okay. Everybody go to your room and read a book till dinner. If that's the way your kids work, then give them,
Well, and if
if they
that's the way
can't come
one
up,
kid works,
if they don't come up with it. Yeah.
but just because I
Yeah.
maybe needed to go read a book until dinner time doesn't mean Josh and Nathan should have been made to.
Yeah.
Or maybe
Yeah.
I needed to go ride my bike. Like, it doesn't have to be a punishment. Like, go do this till you're ready to apologize.
Yeah. Yeah. But if they're not ready to, if they're playing together and getting in conflict when they're together, then separating them,
Yeah. Jenny, what would you like to go
even if
do?
it's their idea, it's like, how do we fix this? And it's like, well, okay, why don't you go why don't you go away for an hour,
Yeah.
or however long it usually takes Jenny or whoever to do that. And that's part of the solution is, okay, we're not, so that as soon as you turn around and leave the room, they're not right back at
Right.
it. It's like, okay, that didn't work. Now we need to do something different. I'm also big
Yeah.
on not repeating the same mistake over and over and over. It's like, well, okay, that didn't work. Next solution. Let's brainstorm a little more. And sometimes it's just you get them away from one another because everybody's having a bad day, or nobody got enough sleep the night before, or everybody had bad lasagna, or whatever. It's boy, you got to be flexible in this business.
It's important though to give each individual child the chance and the choice to choose what they feel they need in that moment. So Josh might
And
be
see if
able
it works
to
sometimes.
Repair and say and apologize. I might not. And so asking,
Josh is a
taking
big
it a step
peacemaker.
further after talking about everyone's emotions, you could even ask each child then, what do you need right now in order to feel safe and secure, in order to move on from this situation? And I could say, like, I may not need the apology. I might just need space. But that lets me, the child, check in with my body and my feelings and literally request or state my need out loud, so that then they also know, like, I'm not just like stomping away and slamming my door and like being pissed off, which just makes siblings want to tease each other even more. Like, I want to go calm. I know that I need space. I need to go calm down before I'm ready to apologize, before I'm ready to repair, before I'm ready to play again, before whatever. And that helps me grow into an adult who can identify that instead of screaming at my partner or saying something I don't mean, etc. I can identify, oh, I need to go calm down. I need alone time. And then I can come back to this conversation. Whereas Josh might be ready to say, I'm sorry. Or Josh might say, I just need, an apology, or I just need us to stop fighting, or I just need this, and then he's fine to keep going, or whatever Nathan needed. So asking each individual kid, we've talked about our emotions. Everyone's been heard. Everyone feels heard. And then checking in with each child. Okay, what do you need in order to feel safe right now? What do you need in order to come back to play together kindly? And each child's needs are probably going to be different. And then you can offer the choice for a sibling. If one sibling says, I just want someone, I just want them to apologize to me. Or I just want it acknowledged by the person who hurt me. Then you can ask that sibling, are you ready to offer that to your sibling?
Can you do that? Or
yeah.
It's a negotiation at that point.
It is. It's everything, and it is a negotiation. And God, these are just such important skills for life.
Well, and we can drill way down into it. I mean, if people are not ready yet, you have to be flexible on the timing.
You have to leave it open to the child has to choose to do it. If you're just forcing children to say words or do something because
absolutely,
then they're never going to learn it.
And they may be too young to come up with the alternatives when you start doing this. And they may need a little bit of prompting or coaching, or, well, what about this? How does this sound? Or, you may have to give them ideas, seed ideas, when they just don't know, particularly if somebody or everybody is still agitated. I'm a big believer that while everybody's agitated, that's not the time to problem solve. You can talk. That's that. I think that's the good transition that I wish I'd have had before, was getting kids to talk about their feelings is a good transition from, bringing kids down, from agitation to, okay, my forebrain's in control again. My lizard brain is still agitated, but my higher cognitive functions are in control. I'm a big believer in, you're allowed to feel any way you want to feel. You are not allowed to act any way you want to act. And teaching that, which is regulation, in my mind. That would be a great methodical, here's a tool to use. Okay, everybody sit down here for a second and we're going to talk, or and have it out. And then, boy, who was it? We had a guest not too long ago about, you are the expert on your children. That's, what one kid needs versus another. There's no formula for that. You have to figure out who needs more time, who's holding back, who's not who's not owning up.
Especially in the beginning,
and how to deal with the resolution.
Depending on how old your children are, this could take a while and might need some repetition before you get good at it, because your children are used to something very different. They're used to being punished.
Everybody needs practice.
Right. Not everyone is going to start doing this, is not hearing this podcast when their child is born. Not everyone is going to, no one is going to do it perfectly all of the time. That we're still human as adults. We're still figuring our shit out, regulating ourselves so that we can walk into that room of kids fighting and create calm and not add to the chaos. And that's a learned skill.
Be the calm.
Yeah. And so it's not about doing it perfectly. It's not about the steps being executed perfectly in a perfect line. But I know some people, having a checklist is useful. And asking your kids, yes, you are the expert on your child. And that quote came from from an episode on the education system where you're talking to the school about your child. You have, something is off with your child, and someone keeps, an entity or an administration
Yeah.
is ignoring you and dismissing you. That quote came from that episode of like, your children best, trust yourself and your instincts. In this particular situation, this is not you decide what your children need, each individual child. Like, you need to be asking your children what they need and believing them when they tell you. And they are going to get better at telling you what they need the more you do this.
Making them think about what they need as opposed to what they want to do in response.
Asking them to think about what they need.
Yes.
Inviting them in to participate, offering choices, because if we make our kids do anything, they're never going to learn it for themselves. So we're creating a safe environment.
I meant to say getting them to think about what they are. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Not holding them down and poking them in the eye until they think about what they need.
But we're creating an environment that is safe for them to do that. And then we're inviting them in to do it. And depending on how old your child is, depending on your previous forms of discipline and punishment, it might take them a while to open up and be willing to say anything to you.
Yeah.
Because kids are terrified of being punished and they're terrified of being shamed.
Yeah.
And kids are going to be kids. There are going to be mistakes. There are going to be repeated fights. Like you, the parent, expecting for something to work once and for it to never happen again. Get over it. It's going to. They're children. They're learning. They're figuring out life. Even as adults, we all do the same fucking shit to ourselves all the fucking time. Yeah. Oh, I shouldn't have eaten that much ice cream. It hurt my stomach. Oh, I shouldn't have, like, whatever. Like, it twisted my ankle. Like, we still do dumb shit, even as adults, because it takes a few times to learn it.
Yeah. And expect it to have an effect on you as a parent, too, because it'll make you think about, when you start teaching your kids things or guiding your kids, you'll find out you're guiding yourself too. It's changing the way you talk to yourself, which is the real key. That's what this is all about. I mean, everybody, it could all be a simulation, and we're just, it's just our internal simulations talking to other internal simulations, however you like to look at it. But it's all about getting in your head, getting in their heads.
And also, and the other way that children will learn how to do this is through you modeling it. So if you are in a disagreement with your child, the way you respond to them, the way you acknowledge, oh, I see, like, you must be frustrated. I see how you're acting. You must be frustrated. Or if you mess up, going to your child and saying, I'm sorry, you didn't deserve that. You didn't deserve to be spoken to that way. I really messed up. I'm so sorry. And modeling the repair, modeling the emotional intelligence.
Important. Yeah.
And so they're going to learn to do that I have watched children learn to do that with each other without any coaching between them, but strictly from how the parents speak to the children.
Yeah. I was just going to say,
and then the siblings speak to each other that way.
Modeling is at least, if not more important than the thinking it through, talking it through thing. Just being a model is good. And that's why it's such a tragedy. People who can't say I'm sorry, that's hard on everybody, including the person who can't say they're sorry.
Yeah. So before we run out of time, so we talked, that was what the one side of the coin with punishment. And the other side of the coin is about fixing something that your child has experienced, separate from you. So, or maybe not even in your household, but a child has experienced a situation that you want to go in and save them from. And so it could be my toy broke, my friend said something about me at school, whatever it is, your child is having a really difficult emotion and they're coming to you crying, or maybe they're not, maybe they're coming to you very calmly, but it's a very, that whatever they're feeling is really gross. And you just want to save them from that pain. Or you just want to make the tantrum stop over the broken toy, whatever it is, whatever emotion you're fixing.
Yeah.
swooping in and promising to buy them a new toy, swooping in and telling them how they should think about a situation with that friend who hurt their feelings. Like, oh, well, then they're not really your friend. Yeah. That's not helpful either, because that makes it even worse. Because they're like, but they were my friend and now I don't have a friend. Like, it's not helpful.
Yeah.
And so
I was taught the phrase by a friend that's a counselor, been a counselor for many years, to check yourself if you can't fix, rescue, or protect a lot of times. Those are things that you can teach better and worse ways to deal with, but you can't, there's a lot of things you can't fix someone else's emotional state or rescue them from a situation. All you can do is talk with them about maybe, provide different ideas on how to deal with things that are healthier, that make them feel better. And
well, that's like, especially with adults, that's something that you're taught of, like, you can't fix, rescue, or save a partner or a friend. Like, all you can do is be there for them. But with kids, it's similar. You can't fix, rescue, or save them from their emotion. You could, and you could try and trying to make your child feel better or not feel pain does nothing to teach them how to deal with life. And so a lot of arguments,
short term.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of it just stops the discomfort momentarily in the short term. That's all it does. Yeah. It doesn't serve the long term. It doesn't serve them in problem solving for themselves. The importance of letting your child experience pain is that once your child becomes an adult and leaves the house, they're going to experience pain. They're going to experience heartbreak. They're going to experience difficult situations that they have to navigate and come up with solutions or next steps or overwhelm. They're going to have to do that, and they're going to have to do it without you. Sure, they can pick up the phone and ask for your advice, but most people want to be able to rely on themselves. That's where confidence comes from, is that I can rely on myself even when I'm faced with something I've never seen before. I know I got this. Yeah. And the I know I got this comes from being able to have a trusted person, parent, adult, sit with me in my pain as a child where it's safe, but still very real. I'm experiencing this pain. It feels like the world is ending. Surely life, this is it. This is as painful as life gets. And having an adult sit with you in that, but not try to fix you, rescue you, or but reassure you that this too shall pass. And I'm with you, and you're not alone. Because if we feel alone in the world, or we feel like someone's just trying to tell us what to do or fix our situation or whatever, like, all we're caught up in is how we feel right now. And we just need someone to sit there and hold us in that pain.
That's where you get overwhelmed. I can't, there's so much coming in, I can't deal with it. And you don't feel, if there's nobody else you can call or talk to or something, then you're just dealing with it alone, and that's no fun at all.
Yeah, so learning in childhood that there are people you can trust and rely on to sit with you when things are really hard and ugly, but also after repeated times of that, you then learn yourself. It's solidified in you. After repetition. It becomes solidified confidence in you that, okay, I feel this very deeply, but this really hurts, and this really sucks, and it feels like the world is ending, but I know that that's not true. I know that it's just how I'm feeling. Yes, I've been through this before, and you've had the reassurance of someone normalizing it for you and sitting through the pain with you. I know I'm not alone. I know that if I need help, I have someone I can call.
I got people. Yeah.
I've been
That
through this before.
sounds like a definition of resilience.
Exactly. And if you don't let your kids, and let's even take it down to I'm 3 and I just broke my favorite fire truck toy.
That's right.
I'm not saying don't ever replace your child's favorite toy with a new
Right.
one. I'm
Right.
not saying that.
I
I'm
just
saying that,
love the different levels we can talk about this on. It's all
oops,
the same stuff,
it's all the same. And that's why I love people who say, if you're a parent coach, niche down. And they mean like by age group or by specialty. And I'm
Emotional
like,
development
emotional development happens at every age, and how you respond to these situations does not change based on age.
Yeah.
Creating relationship is the same no matter how old you are. Creating connection, focusing on connection, building healthy relationship is the same no matter how old you are.
Yeah.
So my niche is connection and building a healthy relationship.
There you go.
And that's it. So anyway, I do, from a lot of gentle people who look down on gentle parenting or, conscious parenting, mindful parenting, blah, 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 whatever, all the different names for it, who look down on this more emotionally focused form of parenting. And they say, well, the world doesn't do that, so I can't raise my kid like that because then they'll be soft and they won't have any real world skills. Bullshit.
Yeah.
This is the only way you're teaching your child real world skills.
Just the opposite. Yeah.
Is by teaching them about themselves, making them resilient, because you're not rescuing them from their hard feelings. You're not punishing their hard feelings. You're having them work through those feelings in a healthy and appropriate way, because everyone's going to have hard feelings. It's going to happen for the rest of your life. And if you just punish them away or fix them constantly, that human is never going to be fully integrated to be able to handle the real world.
Yeah.
So you need to be the safe space so that your child can learn how to navigate the real world before they're actually in it.
We've talked before about it. Golly, swallowed a bug. Internal versus external stuff. When you're talking about having other people squash your emotions and not learning to, handle them and deal with them to a level that's suddenly, in my mind, that's talking about internal and external motivation, where you're waiting for somebody. You get in a situation and you're kind of waiting for the world, who isn't going to necessarily have your interest at mind, come in and somebody else in the world come in and deal with your feelings or help you out of your feelings or whatever, as opposed to being equipped to handle progressively more complex and daunting tasks by virtue of, hey, I started learning some of this stuff, how to deal with my feelings. We get feelings and things get urgent and we get overwhelmed and we don't think straight, and so that's a spiral that we all get into. And boy, the sooner we start teaching our kids to deal with that, what were you thinking? What are you going to do about it? Everybody okay? And and do that 85,000 times by the time they're 17. Here we are again. But that's training. Practice. How do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice. Same as anything else. So I agree totally. That's the only way. That's the only path to resilience.
Yeah. And so not just to kind of sum up, because we didn't spend much time on the fixing things. If your child is 3 and their favorite toy breaks, and instead of just reacting and saying, it's okay, we'll just get a new one, we'll just order a new one. Instead of that, and I'm not saying don't ever replace their toy. I'm saying before you tell them, oh, you can just buy a new one.
Yeah.
You want to let your child feel that. You want to let your child be sad.
Suffer the consequences a little bit. Yeah.
No, it's not even about that. Let them be sad over something they love breaking.
Yeah.
And then once their sadness passes, it's not because it's a consequence of their actions. They're just playing. There is no consequence needed.
Okay.
when they've experienced the sadness, and when you've said, I'm so sorry, baby, that's so hard. Oh, that's so frustrating. That's so sad. Yeah, that's your favorite toy. I know that sucks. I'm so sorry. Come here. Do you need a hug? All the things. And then they calm down. And I'm telling you, it literally takes as long as it took me to say that for them to calm down. If you just say those empathetic words, they're fine.
Empathize.
And then you know what happens after that? They start problem solving themselves without prompting, without anything. Most kids, even at 3 years old, will start making suggestions to fix the situation themselves, whether it's we can glue that piece. Can we glue that piece back on? Can you help me build a new one? They'll start asking or suggesting different ways to fix the situation themselves. Sure. Unless they've been told for years and years and years, we'll just buy a new one. Don't worry about it. Right? Because then that's not going to come naturally to them. But if they're little,
if you're starting at this,
if they're that little, it's very likely that there have not been too many things broken that you've offered to replace. And if you let them just feel what they feel, give them some empathy, they will start problem solving on their own. It is human nature to problem solve, not collapse on the floor and just give up hope. That's not human nature. That's not survival instinct. So jumping in and giving a reactive solution to your child anytime they have big feelings, you steal their chance to solve the problem themselves.
Deal better with the world,
You steal that from
kids
them.
That kids collapsing in tantrums or hopelessness, that's an excellent chance to sit there and what's going on, and not, because that almost communicates that they're expecting someone else to fix it.
It communicates that they're not capable of fixing it themselves. It communicates lack of ability and that they need someone to save them. And we all watch Disney princess movies and grow up thinking that we need to find Prince Charming who's going to save us from ourselves.
Yeah. Or social media.
Yeah. Well, now it's TikTok.
Everybody's perfect life. Watching everybody's perfect life all day make you crazy.
Like, let your child save themselves. And that doesn't mean that you're not an empathetic, loving presence for them. Mm-hmm. It means that you're not fixing every emotion that they have. You can't steal their pain, because then you steal the lessons that they take away from their pain.
Yeah. And you're not necessarily teaching, you're guiding them through those.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I get it now.
We sat here before we started this episode, and I was like, what? Mm-hmm. I was like, I don't know. Should we do do a reintroduction of what is relational parenting, or should we do this, this quit fixing everything for your children, this punishment versus fixing things versus emotional intelligence? Mm-hmm. And I feel like they kind of merged. Mm-hmm. I feel like, because this is the foundation of relational parenting. And I do want to I have, when we did the first episode, I didn't have this yet. Well, I had it created. I hadn't printed it and laminated it.
It's laminated now. Ooh.
But I did some events earlier in the year, so I made some signs and things.
All right, you're building.
I guess we will do another episode that is specifically talking about the pillars and foundations of the relational parenting method that I created.
The methodology.
But I did finally create the relational development pyramid, and it's 2-sided. They're the same, so they correspond. So relationship to caregiver corresponds to physical competence. Okay. Emotional competence also responds to relationship to caregiver. Gotcha. And then as we develop social competence, we develop relationship to non-caregivers. And as we develop cognitive competence, we develop relationship to ourselves. And
Okay.
each of these builds on the one below it. And you can't skip any of them.
This is like reading levels, right? And when I was a kid in school, they had little reader things, and they'd have a bunch of books, and they kept track of what level you were in, niche you were in for reading. Yeah, you kind of have to go through. If you can't read the level 1 books, you're not going to have much fun with the level 2 books, and so on. That was
and even learning to read, you can't read if you don't know what the letters are and the sounds that they make. So there's a first step before the second step can develop, before the third step can develop appropriately, before the fourth step. And that fourth step of relationship to ourselves is what matters when we step out into the world. And if we aren't building those bonds with caregivers and non-caregivers, and then the bond we have with ourselves, the confidence we have in ourselves, the resilience that we have with ourselves to overcome difficulty in life, none of it's going to develop appropriately. And we're all going to, and your child's going to go through 10 years of therapy, if not more, to build themselves in adulthood.
And somebody else will be getting paid to do it. That touches on one of my favorite topics is don't expect to not learn anything from your kids when you're doing this.
Oh my God, you're constantly learning from your kids.
As you start working this way with your kids, you'll find you're working with yourself too. You'll hit old wounds, old bad habits, and you'll be learning from it as much as the kids will.
Yeah. If you let it, parenting, having children will absolutely transform you.
Yeah.
As a person.
Not a one-way street at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good stuff.
That was good. That was great. Yeah. I liked it. I like where we went. We often start you and I's episodes. I used to be I was like on my own ass about like creating this beautiful outline for us. Yeah. But when I started just kind of showing up and being like, this is what's on my mind today. And then you're like, all right. And I was like, here's a couple of talking points that I'm going to talk about. And then we just kind of fly. And I don't know. It always ends up working out.
Well, we're kind of hitting a stride here. I find myself hearkening back. We've got enough history and enough guests and enough talks of our own where we're kind of figuring out where we are, getting in the groove. We're getting a groove going.
We're getting in a groove, but I think it's also nice to not plan everything so meticulously and just let it go where it's going to go. I had no idea we were going to talk about your conflict resolution skills between us. Depending on how much I cut, if you guys hear how long it took me to come up with the actual question I was trying to ask you, it's because I didn't have one planned.
Yeah. No, that's part of the draw here. Just us chit-chatting about parenting. Hopefully, in a way, people can glean and get interested. And for me, it's all about making the world a little bit better place. Passing on what we've learned.
Yep. All right, friends. Well, happy parenting and good luck out there. Well, did you learn anything new? Or have you heard all of this before? Do you agree with us, disagree with us, have a question? We want to see you in our inbox or via the Patreon page in the show notes. Tap on either link to send us your feedback, share your own parenting story, or support our mission of providing a connected community for all parents. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you loved this episode, click on that little star and give us 5 of them so we can get visible to other parents who are looking for us. This is your weekly reminder. Parents, you already have everything you need inside of you. You are a strong, loving, capable parent. And here, you are never alone. I'll see you next week.